We all know cheap rum sells a lot more than expensive rums, but when it comes to Jamaican rum and the cheap rums, which one of these should be the king of Jamaica? Now, obviously, I don't know too much about what goes on the island of Jamaica, but when we're talking about the export market, these four rums are possibly the four cheapest proper rums to come out of Jamaica. And I mean proper distillery brand rums. Not rums that have been distilled and sold off and then bottled up by independent distillers or independent bottlers like Myers. I'm talking proper distillery own brands. Let's face it, if you're a distillery, you're going to keep the best rum for yourselves, aren't you? Of course you are. Now, if you're a rum novice and looking at this and thinking there's four different brands here, four different distilleries, there's not. There's actually two different distilleries and two big global players in the rum market. But actually, all four of these rums should be well under the $20 mark. Now, yes, with taxes in the UK, we do pay slightly more, and these are going to be like £22. But I know in the US, these should be sub $20. I should really do this like a boxing match. So in the red corner, we have Appleton Estate. Now, Appleton, you know, Appleton Signature needs no introduction, but the Kingston 62 might. The Kingston 62 is the old Appleton Gold. They rebranded the two, the Appleton White and the Appleton Gold, I want to say just before COVID, so just before 2020, but I haven't got a firm handle on that. But they rebranded those two, maybe two rums to Kingston 62. So there's Kingston 62 White, which used to be Appleton White, and Kingston 62 Gold, which used to be Appleton Gold. And then there used to be the step up to Appleton Signature. So if that's the red corner, then we have to come over here to the blue corner. And I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but in the blue corner, we have Worthy Park Estate. Now, Worthy Park Estate have got a lot of tradition, but when it comes to distilling their own or releasing their own rums as a brand, it's actually a relatively new thing. There was a big distillery and they used to bottle or blend and distill for other people and sell it off. But it's only in recent modern day times that they've actually distilled and bottled their own brands. Now, you might think Worthy Park was the original Worthy Park brand, and it might have been when it comes to the aged rums. And we've got Worthy Park Single Estate up on the back of the bar up there. But actually what they did first, especially to an export market, was release their Rum Bar range. There was three rums in this range. We've got the Rum Bar White, we've got the Rum Bar Overproof, and we've got the Rum Bar Gold. Now that range has been available now for a couple of years, but what they've just recently done is now released the Worthy Park range. And as I said, you have to ignore the more expensive sipping rums that might be up there. These are your cocktail rums. So in this corner, we have Worthy Park Select. Now this is going to be a blind tasting, but I've already christened this the King of Jamaican Rum. But a blind tasting, when I don't know which one I'm drinking, is it actually going to live up to the hype? So let's get involved in the first test and a blind tasting. I don't know which of these. I've got an email attachment to open. I don't know which way round these are, but let's dive in. Number one, I get a nice sort of little bit of funky nose coming off that actually. Not too diverse, not too sort of banana and tropical fruits, but kind of vanilla. But there is a little bit of sort of funky estuariness coming off that. And do you know what? On the taste, for a $20 or less rum, that's actually really good. It's a peppery spice bite. I wouldn't say it's too complex, but I do get a little bit of funk off that actually, which for me rules out the Appleton Signature straight away. But there's a little banana-y aftertaste, a little vanilla. That's actually quite decent. That punches out, right, to put the comparison in, that punches out in flavour a lot more than any sort of Barbados rum would do. That I kind of like that. I would, yeah, I've got high hopes for that in test coming up. Right, number two. Whoa, whoa, now we're talking funk. Oh, there's a lot more funk. And bearing in mind, these are low price points here compared to something like a Hamden 8-year-old or something like that. There is funk punching out on this one. It's this ripe banana, even a subtle hint of sort of mango-y vibe going off here. That smells really, oh, this smells good. Oh, that tastes good as well. Right. The first one has got a lot more spice tingle, a lot more peppery tingle going on and grips your tongues, whereas that's a lot easier to drink. These rums have got to be, they can't be in barrels that long. I would say number one has been in a barrel a lot longer than number two. Bearing in mind these, because they are proper Jamaican rums from Jamaican distilleries, there is zero sugar added to them. Now number three has a little bit of funkiness to it, but not as much as number two. And there's more kind of subtle fruit going on, if you know what I mean. How I would right, number three smells like a fruitier version of number two. A little bit, oh, actually, it's a little bit of varnish, a little bit of sort of acetone notes going onto the back of that. Number three is as grippy as what number two is. It's got that sort of bite that goes on the back of your tongue, like underneath your tongue. I get more fruit off number two. Number two for me is more accessible. I'm going to say a little bit funkier. It's got more of that sort of banana vibe to it. But number three is delicious. I really like that. Now, number four on the nose, again, is, you know, I would probably, after a couple of minutes, sort of the penny would drop and I'll go, yeah, probably Jamaican. It's not as what I would expect Jamaican rum to smell like as these three. But there was a little bit of sort of funky, fruity, banana-y kind of vibe going on to it. It smells... right. Number two is the most approachable for me because I like the fruit notes that go onto it. But if you're a rum fan and don't like an abundance of fruit, this one is probably the most approachable to you. Oh, now that's interesting. I never know how to explain this on camera, but to me, that one's got the more body and the most robust one out of the four. That's actually the one closer to being neat sipper out of all of these. You know, I'm loosely bracketing these as cocktail mixing rums, but actually for me, that one's the closest to being a neat sipper. I do like the fruity vibes of that one, but I could be persuaded to go this one. You know, this one's actually quite delicious. Now, for a rum and coke test, because I think that's a standard mixer, there was two ways I'm going to bracket this to give you the lowdown. So first up for me, there are, you know, Jamaican rum isn't for everyone. You know, some people don't want that fruitiness. Some people don't want that estery, overripe banana-y vibe to it. Now, for those people, you are going to massively enjoy that one, which is number four. Number four is an all-round great mixing rum. It doesn't punch out into any direction too much. It's just a good quality mixing rum. However, for me, I really like number two. I like the fruitiness. I like the little bit of punchiness to it. A little bit of like, oh yeah, hello, I'm from Jamaica kind of thing going on. That's really good. Number one for me is just a little bit too hot, if that's the word. It's a little bit too rough around the edges. And number three just punches out in a little bit too much funk. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, because number two punches out in funk as well. What I class as funk, like that banana-y ripeness, esteriness. Number three just goes a little bit too far. I think for rum lovers, I think number three is possibly the one that would excite you. But for straight down the line, you know, coming up your journey where you don't want anything too funky or anything like that, I think number four has to hit it. For me, that's close. Personally, I'm going number two. Mass market, I'm going number four. Now look, the only fair test for this probably would be the cocktail test. Now, when it comes to Jamaican rum, there's only really one cocktail that kind of stands out, and that is the Mai Tai. So this is a 1 rum Mai Tai. Do any of these cut it in that respect? Yeah, 2 do. 2 are really good Mai Tais. And 2 are like, yeah, I wouldn't have them as a Mai Tai. And that's really surprised me, actually, because 2 of these are actually very, very good and kind of punch out. The only bit for me that I personally want is that little bit of darker rum, that little bit of probably heavier aging. And there's a reason I use like Worthy Park 109 in there, or Plantation OFTD, because I like that little bit of extra body, that extra bit of feistiness. But as a 1 rum Mai Tai that I would bracket alongside like Chairman's Reserve Legacy, like Bounty Dark, this up there, this behind there, is really good Mai Tais. There are 2 here at Steal It, and that's these 2 in the middle. So first off, this one down here is all right. My least favourite of the bunch is that one. That's just like it doesn't balance the almond. It just doesn't. So with a Mai Tai, for those of you who don't know, never made one, it's essentially rum, and bartenders will get a little bit geeky, and people at home, maybe 3 rums, maybe 4 rums, maybe 2 rum blends. You've got your orange curacao, you've got your lime, you've got your orgeat, and you've got your demerara sugar. And then shaken over crushed ice with a couple of agitated cubes, and then sort of served up. Now, for me, that just doesn't balance the cocktail at all in the slightest. That is just, it's all right, but it's just not, that is nowhere even remotely close to being a Mai Tai. It's just like, it's a little bit too sweet for me. The rum, it just doesn't there. And then this one down here. That's decent. That is light years ahead of that. It's light years ahead of that. But then we get to these 2 in the middle here. I think for a balanced cocktail, bearing in mind they're exactly the same ratios that's gone in there, for a balanced cocktail, that smashes it out of the park. That is absolutely phenomenal. But you do get this little bit of extra sort of funkiness that's coming off here, which I kind of like. But if I was going to pick one for a Mai Tai, it would be that one. My personal standout is this one, number 2. That's where I'm going. But I think mass market, if you ignore the Mai Tai, because that's the worst Mai Tai out of the 4. But for sipping, neat, and mixing, like rum and coke, probably rum and ginger, that's mass market level. Right, so here we go. Email attachment opened. That's really surprised me, and it does fill me with the sense of kind of, satisfaction, because I've banged on about this rum. I do think before blind tasting, like completely blind, I have crowned this the King of Jamaica, and that's number 2, because number 1 is Kingston 62, number 3 is Rum Bar Gold, and number 4 is Appleton Signature. Wow. Do you know what? That's actually quite decent. Look, tasting these neat and doing this all depends on your use case scenario. It really does. Like, it's fully apparent to me now in a cocktail environment that is just like not even at the races, and yet I know it has a lot of fans as a mixer and as a rum and coke, as a neat sipper. It really does. I'll be honest, I don't understand now why you would buy Rum Bar Gold over the Worthy Park. The little intriguing bit for me is this, because neat sipping from Appleton, from Worthy Park, that's the hands down winner by a long way. But from Appleton, that is the neat sipper, but as a mixer, that is so much better. In cocktails and stuff like that. But it just depends on your price, and it's a different rum. It's more grippier, it's got more tannin, it's got more bite to it. 40%. Yeah, 40%. That's definitely 40%. Yeah. Yeah. So that's down to you, but my my king of Jamaica is Worthy Park Select.